All right, good morning, everyone. Sounds like everyone can hear me. We're on, all right. So thank you all for joining us today for a conversation around how connected technology is really changing the game in pre-construction and allowing companies like Amcal to go, as Hamid would say, from napkins to numbers in minutes. We're really excited to chat with y'all today. And first and foremost, I want to open this conversation, set us up with a little bit of numbers and data, and then we'll jump into a friendly chat with Hamid and Jerry here about their personal experiences from industry. So I'm Jeremy Chasen. I'm on the partnerships team at Procore, and one of the reasons I'm up here today is over the last year, I've had a great opportunity to form a really strong partnership with Hamid and his software, Zebel, and connect Zebel to Procore to fuel some of what we're gonna discuss today. Prior to coming to Procore, I worked in real estate development for many years and also as a capital project delivery consultant, helping people do a lot of what we're gonna talk about. So with that, I'm gonna head to the next slide here and we'll talk about a little bit of that data. I actually do not have a slide clicker. I apologize. Thank you. All right. So Procore is doing some pretty exciting things in the pre-construction technology space these days. So as part of that, we partnered with FMI last year to do a study on the state of pre-construction to really learn from you all and your peers in the industry at large. What is most challenging to you? What are you most interested in investing in more? And all of the above. And a few of the things that were really interesting to us is the findings of there's really that lack of digitized and connected process technology and workflow that's hindering the pre-construction part of the industry. You can see on these slides here, these were some of the findings. Basically, these were the percentages of people that were satisfied with these specific parts of their pre-construction process. So low satisfaction for these early stages of pre-construction, places like project conception and feasibility analysis, planning and estimates on the early pre-construction side, and then that data handoff between pre-con and execution. This study also showed us, only 38% of 1,000 respondents were satisfied with their pre-construction technology. We also, because we're able to see the data, some of the other interesting things that I think we all know, but were really shined through in this were a lot of the industry is still using very customized and specific spreadsheets, Excel on steroids, basically, which I used to do quite a bit, and I got a lot of love for Excel, but I think we can do better. So these were the top 3 challenges really that came from this report that you and your peers were explaining to us you're having the most trouble with. And connection and collaboration with key stakeholders and leveraging that data effectively are 2 of the key things we're gonna dig in on today. It also showed us, what you're not challenged by. So in general, most of you are not challenged by the ability to use technology. If you have good technology, you've got people that are excited to use it, excited to work it into a formal process and roles and responsibilities. So all of this really tells us that we on the technology industry side can do better. We can do better at delivering connected technology and helping stakeholders connect the data. This is basically a way that we believe, this was another thing that shined through in that report. This is how technology in the past had looked at the life cycle of construction. The technology silos were broken down into these specific areas, design, pre-con, build. Not integrated technology. What we'd like to get you to, and what we believe the future is in, and really the future is here today, integrating these technologies, delivering integrated projects with integrated technologies that allows you to really leverage the data and the stakeholders in a collaborative way and learn from that data to inform future builds. Oh, there we go. So with that, I'm going to now introduce my colleagues here on stage and let them introduce themselves a little bit more. Hamid, would you like to go first, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about why you're here on stage today, what brought you to this moment?
Thank you. I'm Hamid Hajian, co-founder and CEO of Zebel. I grew up in a family of real estate developers and general contractors. And that's how I got into this industry. And I spent more than a decade in construction before starting Zebel. Most recently, I worked for a large multifamily company based in California. I was a Precon manager, where I created an internal tool, just like any other tool that starts with Excel spreadsheets. It was this Excel file. And the whole idea was to put all of our historical data in one spot and then build some analytical tools on top of it to leverage it to estimate the future projects. And that spreadsheet morphed into a more complicated spreadsheet, and then I found myself having multiple ones, then moved the whole thing to Google Sheets to make it more collaborative. Turned into a big success. Everyone really loved it, but there was a problem. I was the only one who knew exactly how to operate that spreadsheet, that complicated one. And I was really the gatekeeper of all of our historical data, or technically I was a walking database for the whole company. And to the point that even after I quit my job to start Zebel, they asked me to stay on as a consultant because the company was so dependent on those collection of spreadsheets that I built. And after that, I basically spent the time to build a team, and now we've been in the market with Zebel and working with some of the largest developers and contractors in the nation.
I'm Jerry Huerta. I think I'm customer number 3 for Zebel. A little bit about me. I have been in the construction industry for 20 years, 18 of those years with a developer builder of multifamily construction in Southern California. We build all throughout California, and about 12 years ago started a branch in Texas and have grown that to about the same volume as what we do in California. But we are about 100 or so plus companies, so small, mid-sized company.
Right on. Thank you. So, we talked about the FMI study and what we deduced as the most important and most challenging parts of pre-construction. But I'd love to hear from your all's experience, seeing as you both come from that field experience. So, Jerry, could you tell us a little bit about your experience? What have been the most challenging areas for you?
Well, actually, I resonated a lot with what Hamid just said, and that we had a very similar spreadsheet at our company that was built by our pre-construction manager at the time. He called it the Amcal Omatic 3000. And absolutely no one else could use this thing. And as he left the company, it was basically obsolete at that point. I don't remember how we connected or how you found me, but Hamid reached out to me, showed me the software in a presentation, and that's really the only way you can kind of grasp what this thing does and the power it has. But it's very specialized to multifamily, so you can plug in your lot size, number of units, very quickly enter some very generic information, and using your own historical data, which they leverage, pops out an estimate in a matter of a few minutes. So that was what drew me to Hamid and Zebel, and that's why we're here today.
Awesome, thank you. Hamid, do you have anything to add to that in terms of your experiences? And
Sure. When I was a Precon manager, we were always busy with those kind of shovel-ready projects. You have the full CD set, you're going back and forth with the subs, soliciting bids, editing it, compiling your entire budget, informing the owner, here's my updated budget. But while we were super busy with that, we were getting peppered with these quick requests. Here's a site plan for my project. I just got it from the architect. Can you give me a quick estimate? And don't ask for more information. This is all I got, just a site plan, just sometimes like a hand-drawn, cartoon drawing. But don't worry, I'm not going to hold you to it. Just give me a number. but you know what happens. Yeah. And it was a challenge. And we used to turn around those kind of estimates in a couple of weeks. that's really what triggered me to create that spreadsheet in the first place, to be able to turn around those estimates quickly, because it was not quick enough for the developer client, and it was really annoying for us as the Precon team while we were busy with everything else, but we had to do these quick estimates at the same time too.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and all of that really resonates with me, especially the Amcal-o-matic. You know, I had in my real estate development days my own spreadsheets with version names and do not touch or do not do anything with this. I'm hiding it in my own drive, those kind of things, and that walked out the door with me when I left there. So I completely understand where you're coming from. And then in my consulting career, I was helping people get away from that. So. So I want to dig in on some of those points for a second here and ask Jerry, Jerry, what are the risks in not being able to do this well? Where does that cause you a lot of pain in the business?
Well, as long as we're not held to it, there's not a lot of risk, right?
Yeah.
But everybody knows that, these guys rely on these numbers. I was kind of in a crunch when Hamid came to me because we had lost our leader in the Precon department. So, having to rely on the staff you have on hand and still continue to do business, obviously that's a risk. Not being able to leverage your own data that you have, that's a problem. So, Hamid was able to solve that problem for us. Obviously, the team I do have in place still, checks what is being put out. Obviously, I've been working with them for 2 years now, so it's taken some time to really learn how to use it, learn how to leverage it, but also spot check as we're going through this process, because you're not just going to take a new technology and especially something that important, a conceptual estimate. You want to make sure it's accurate in the range of what it should be. So my internal team still helps out, but we're running this thing concurrently, and I'm able to do this and turn around numbers pretty quickly to my development guys.
Awesome. And that accuracy, I'm assuming, at least from my experience, is pretty important to drive towards something that's actually feasible, right? And not have to reinvent the wheel again when you get to a point that it's not feasible.
Absolutely.
Hamid, anything else that you would add in terms of what goes wrong if you're not able to turn these things around quickly and accurately?
Yeah, one way to look at the pre-construction team is if you are a GC, your pre-con team is really your business development department. You may not call it business development, but it is really what drives business into the company. And when a developer is asking you for a quick estimate, they are probably asking for that estimate from multiple GCs, or a couple of GCs at least. And if you can turn around that estimate the next day versus 2-3 weeks, unlike everyone else, that just lets you stand out immediately from the crowd. And that's something I experienced on one more particular project I remember when I was in Precon. We turned around the estimate the next day, and it really helped foster that really good relationship with that developer client. And they ended up picking us as the GC of the job. And one of the key reasons was those quick updates, because every time they wanted to get an update, they would come to us and they would ask these lot of what-if analysis kind of questions. What if we make the project a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, shorter, wider? And we were able to do those really quickly and be nimble, and that helped us a lot.
Yep, makes total sense. So now kind of moving to the next, what are the key blockers to being able to do this well? I mean, we talked about some of them with the walking databases and the spreadsheets, but take me one step further, Jerry, if you wouldn't mind.
Again, it's probably a lot to do with who's on your staff, and like the other speaker that was here a minute ago, the experience level of those people matters tremendously. With having a skeleton crew, basically, I've been able to kind of continue doing what we've been doing as a company, having the support of Zebel, being able to change a project to a different model, change the number of units. We're going to switch to this now. And being able to do that quickly, I mean, it could take the normal way of doing it, weeks to just kind of reshuffle everything in their normal estimate. But being able to do that in the software that quickly is tremendous.
Yeah, that's great. And I loved when we were prepping, one of the things that you said is, actually, I'll let Hamid tell the story about how this kind of all came to be, basically, and what the blockers were that even Hamid saw as he was standing up software. So could you give us a little bit of that story that we were talking
absolutely. One of the big challenges, basically, or blockers, is dealing with unstructured data. Because typically, when we work with clients, when they send us their historical data, it means a collection of spreadsheets and PDFs. And we have to sift through it, scrub the data, clean up, and upload to Zebel so that they can use it for their future estimates. And when we started working with Jerry, asked them to send us the data, and we realized that they are downloading their historicals from their Procore account and then emailing it to us, and then we upload it to Zebel. And then that was the point where Jerry asked, why don't you integrate with Procore? Because all of our projects are on Procore. If I can just push a button and directly export all of my data from past projects from Procore to Zebel, so I can have that complete round tripping of the data from past projects to inform the next projects. And that's how we started this whole integration. And then we found other companies that are in the same boat. They have their construction data in Procore, and it's just after the construction is done, that data is just parked there, and there is no more use for it. But now we are making it useful to inform the next round of projects.
Powering the dream.
The other important thing about that, too, is your estimate when you start a job may not necessarily be accurate. When you get into the buyout and you start to get into the numbers and actually understanding the scopes and the subs, bids, that budget's going to shift and change.
Yes.
So that's the other power of having that integration with Procore. You can not just rely on some budget that we sent you, but as things develop, I'm downloading the most current number, the most current budget on a particular project.
And one thing I'm hearing from a lot of our customers is they're telling us, if you can give me a way to just download all of our historical data without having to go to the construction team and send them an email, say, send me your latest budget, that would be great. Because now I don't have to do that and going to bug them and say, send me the latest approved budget. It's all on Procore, push the button, get it in there.
Yeah, so integrated technology driving integrated stakeholders and data. Love it. All right, so we'll ask one or two more questions, and then we'll leave a little space for Q&A, because you all are the experts in the room, and we're interested to hear what you're interested to ask us about. But Jerry, if you could help your colleagues in the room here, what would be one recommendation, or a few recommendations if you have them, for people to get started on this journey or continue the journey?
Yeah, well, if anything, going back to that, leveraging your data, owning that data, it's not useful if you have all these past projects, but you can't access the data, can't use it effectively. So that, to me, was, what made this so critical, so important to keep it going.
Yeah, I love it. And when we were prepping for this, you were telling me that structuring of that data is really important. And the easier you can structure that data and keep it consistent, the easier it'll be to do exactly what we're talking about here.
Right.
And, time to value then shrinks. So over the next couple of years, and really today we're in the middle of it, pre-construction is definitely an innovation center for technology. So personally, I'm very excited about where we're all going with this. I'm excited to see how many people are here learning and sharing with each other. And as the partnerships guy here, I'm really excited for the future of my partnership with Hamid and Zebel and the rest of our partners at Procore. But I also want to know from Hamid, what are you most excited about for the future?
Well, we see the future of pre-construction as a transparent one, where you can not only access your own data really easily at your fingertips, but also access what we call the market data. So that if you want to know just how much other companies are spending on their projects, similar projects, instead of having to source that information in phone calls with your buddies at other companies or in conferences and conversations, the kind of anecdotal sources of information, you should be able to look it up in some graphs. Unlike everything that you can Google, or I guess in these days you can use ChatGPT to ask for information, but you can't really look up how much things cost in construction. If you Google it, you will get linked to some random blogs. And that's what we are really excited about. After we started the company, some of our customers came to us and suggested, why don't you aggregate our data with the rest of your customers, but anonymize it, because I don't want to share my data with anyone else, but I would love to know how much other companies are spending on it. So if you can figure out a way to be the Switzerland of construction cost data, it will be great. And we worked on it, and we figured a way to anonymize the data and give you access to the broader pool of data we are aggregating from everyone. We started with a couple of clients, and Jerry was one of our early clients, like number 3. And now we are working with a lot more, covering 28 states across the country and growing. And people really love that idea. And that's really what I'm really excited about.
The owner of my company really liked that idea too. I mean, developers are always trying to find out what other people are building for, right? I mean, everybody wants to know. So I think that's a huge, advantage to Zebel as well, is being able to access, similar projects, narrow it down to what you're building, and see what the numbers are coming in from the aggregate data.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, gentlemen, both. If you want to learn more about what Zebel or Procore are doing in the Precon space, obviously come by our booths later today. Come talk to any of us. But I want to take the rest of the time here, open it up for some Q&A. So, are there any questions in the room? It looks like we've got some on the board right here. I guess I'll just ask these to you, gentlemen. So 5 years from now, do you think GCs will start to share their historical costs with some sort of crowdsourced tool?
I can speak to that. They're doing that now. So we were not sure in the beginning when those customers suggested us, because we come from the same space, and we know this is super confidential, sensitive information. People are not comfortable putting that up on any website. But after the careful design of how to publish and the anonymized data, people were receptive to it. So it's already happening.
Anything to add, or should we move to the next one?
No, can move on.
All right, cool. So I'll ask this one to Jerry. Jerry, what do you consider an accurate range when in the conceptual phase?
Oh God. Well, obviously there's a lot of factors in that. One of the rules we use, internally as a company, when you start with a very early stage project in feasibility, I mean, we do about 15% contingency. As we go through the process, we learn more about the phase 1, the phase 2, the soils, different site conditions. We start to narrow it down to 10%. Once we start the DD stage, we go down to 7%. So there's a process that we go through, but I would say that's kind of a fair range for accuracy.
Thank you. Hamid, anything to add on that one, or move on?
Oh, good.
Okay, cool. So next one here. For Zebel and Procore to integrate properly, is it required to use Procore accounting tool? I can take that one real quick. Yes, Procore Financials and the financial management solution set is what powers that integration today. So the historical data coming from using Procore Financials feeds into Zebel to help power this.
But I just want to say it's the financial tool, not necessarily the invoicing.
Good point. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Is the responsibility of vetting data before import the contractor's responsibility? Hamid, I'll kick that to you.
Yeah, we typically receive the raw data from customers, and we have a customer team that goes through that data to make sure that everything is cleaned up and identically formatted. But we are not going to obviously change the dollars. It's all about making sure the data is formatted properly, and our team can help with formatting and handling and processing the data before uploading to the system.
We got a little more time left, so we'll keep going here. Thanks for all the questions. All right.
I want to speak to something I read about adjusting,
please.
That was one of my biggest fears was, taking on, using historical data and also we took it on in 2021 when, as you all know, numbers were going berserk. I mean, it's, how do you adjust? What are we, how are we, what's the inflation? What should we adjust this cost? So some of the ways you guys have solved that, you can speak to it, is being able to do it break it down by year.
Yeah, yes.
There's I saw another question about adjustments on being very specific. You can get down to, pretty granular level as well. Just aggregating, comparable jobs and, pumping out a number. You have to massage that, right? It's not just, the software is great, but there's, like I said before, there's got to be somebody that has the experience and knowledge to really massage that estimate and understand, where this project differs from the other, where we're going to have to accommodate for that. So
yeah, your projects could be very similar, but no two projects are identical. You may want to use a project as a comp for estimating a new one, but you may have had some GeoPeers in your old project that you do not have in the new one. So you want to go into your line item and zero out that number, or maybe double the cost of countertops in the new project because you're going with some fancy countertops. And so you are able to do those manual adjustments. What the software does is it gives you that 5-minute number really quickly. It crunches all of the numbers, looks at the historical cost per unit, per square foot, per bedroom, however you want it, adjusts for escalation, gives you that initial number. Now it's time to go into the line items and adjust it manually. That's how you can adjust for different scope of work, different specifications, or different things.
you can also customize escalation, general conditions, fees, right? All these things are manually adjusted.
Yeah, and these are some of the things that initially we started out very simple. Like we used to have just 1% per year escalation because when I first created this, we were in pre-COVID time, like when the escalations were not 10, 15, 20%. We were always like 5, 6, 7%. But after COVID, we adapted. People asked us, like, I need to apply 5% escalation for 2019, but when it comes to 2020, 2021, I need to apply 10, 15%, and then back down to 5% this year. So we allowed for that now.
All right. I think we got time to answer one more here. Hamid, I think a lot of these are about Zebel. Are there any of those that you'd like to pick to answer?
Yeah, about does Zebel time adjust the historical data? If so, using what index? We do not follow any particular index. We give you multiple external sources of data, including those indices or the information from Federal Reserve Economic Database to inform your decision to put the escalations that works for you, for your kind of project, for your market that you're operating in.
Hi, yeah. I don't know if this is working, so it's kind of a question for you, but for the room, kind of going back to what was text earlier. So we all get a 8.5 by 11, and then we get 50% drawings, we get to 100% drawings. And you commented about, well, I'm putting 15%, then 10%, then 5, then 2.5. So we all do that. I think what the person was asking, what I'd like to know is maybe what the room is what is acceptable? So let's say it's a $20 million project when it's an 8.5 written on a napkin. And at the end of GMP, you're at 21 million or you're at 19 million. What do you guys see is the acceptable range where you feel like you hit it at that napkin estimate versus 100% CDs? So as someone who does this every day, I'd like to be within 5% start to finish. But I'm just curious what you would consider acceptable. If you had an employee that did the 8.5 by 11 versus the 100% CDs, where do you expect that initial estimate to be versus the final product?
Do you want to take that, Jerry?
Sure.
Easy one, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we can argue about that all day, but I think it also is very project specific, right? Some projects have different financing structures. Some of them have more wiggle room. Others are very tight from the very start. So accuracy is always important. It's always important. But you know, when you start off with very little information, I mean, how accurate can you really be? That's why we rely on the historical data. I mean, that's really the whole point of leveraging it and being able to pump out numbers quickly when, you know, the most important thing is finding the best deal. And I think that's what I was maybe speaking about earlier, is that, you know, being able to give these guys numbers immediately so that we can pass on a certain property. Maybe we don't want to deal with that one. You know, we move on. So being able to turn those numbers around. And I have checked this. We've been between 5% from the Zebel number to my estimators running their own normal estimate like they normally do. So it's been very impressive. I mean, I've been kind of blown away. I share it every time with Hamid. When I see it, I'm like, wow, you're like within $10,000 on concrete, you know, when I get a real budget number from a sub. So it's pretty cool, pretty impressive. I mean, it's great. You know, the way this is all going, technology kind of getting integrated into this process is just exciting to see.
And I want to add a quick note to that. It all comes down to when you're doing a conceptual estimating, you have very limited information, limited input, and you still have to put out a pretty important output. And, but you don't have a whole lot of information to begin with. What matters is to generate that number based off of some data, something that you can back it up. Something that when you look back at it 6 months later, you can understand why you arrived at that number. It may be 5–10% off, but at least you understand how you arrived at that number versus that was my gut feeling number at the time.
Shooting darts.
Yes.
All right, and with that, I think we are out of time, maybe even a little over. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate all the engagement. Thank you.